Chapter 1, Kremensky Encirclement, How Russia Closes the Encirclement. The war in Ukraine has entered its third year, and every day brings unpredictable developments. But on August 23, 2025, the hottest news came from the Kremensky front. The Russian army announced that it had closed the encirclement of this area, leaving Ukrainian forces inside with almost no way to retreat. This is not normal information, but one of the turning points that can reshape the entire situation of the war in eastern Ukraine. So, where is Kremensky? Why is it so important? And what tactics did Russia use to close the encirclement? To understand clearly, let's open the military map of the Donbas region, where Kremensky plays the role of a vital intersection. Kremensky is located in the middle of the corridor connecting Lyman, Seversk, Lysychansk. If you imagine the map as a chessboard, then Kremensky is the square right in the center. Whoever controls it will decide the ability to cut the enemy line in half. Russia advances step by step, not loudly but surely. The Russian army's tactics in recent months are no longer massive breakthroughs, but slow, salami slicing style. They advance kilometer by kilometer, village by village, gradually tightening Kremensky like a sack. If you look at the map, the Russian offensive points form an arc from the north and south, like a closing pincer. An interesting point here is that Russia does not attack quickly, because if they attack quickly, the battle will easily collapse if they are counterattacked by surprise. Instead, they apply dense artillery tactics, suicide drones, and electronic warfare to disable the Ukrainian army's communications. Jokingly, the Ukrainian soldiers in the encirclement are now like having their Wi-Fi cut off in the middle of the market. They want to call for help, but the signal is intermittent, and the artillery is exploding like a New Year's firecracker. The importance of Kremensky, to see its significance, let's compare it with historical encirclements. At Stalingrad in 1942, the Nazis were surrounded by the Soviet Red Army, leading to one of the most disastrous defeats in the history of warfare. Although Kremensky is much smaller, its location immediately reminds people of key battles. If Russia completely controls Kremensky, they will open the door to advance deeper into the west, while threatening to cut off Ukraine's important supply line. In fact, the Western military also has to admit that if this encirclement is closed, Kiev will face a huge strategic pothole on the war map. Kiev soldiers in the encirclement, a dilemma. According to sources from the battlefield, Ukrainian forces inside Kremensky are trying to find every way to escape. But every way has Russia. If you imagine it simply, it is like a video game where the map has only 4 exits and all 4 are guarded by the enemy. No matter how skilled the player is, they will be caught. A Ukrainian soldier was described as saying, "We dug trenches, moved at night, but every morning we heard drones buzzing like wasps above our heads." This story illustrates how Russia has made the most of its technological advantages, from drones, radar systems, to on-site intelligence networks to turn the Kremensky encirclement into a steel cage. Has Russia learned from history? If you read Russian military history, you will see that they are very fond of using encirclement tactics from the Tsarist era, the Soviet era, and to the present. A typical example is the Battle of Kursk, 1943. The Soviet Union succeeded thanks to a tight encirclement. Now, a similar scenario is being repeated in Ukraine. The good thing here is that Russia doesn't need to make many speeches. They just silently close the encirclement so that when the whole world is surprised, the circle is already closed. If we compare humorously, Kiev is like a person trapped in a hot pot, while Russia slowly dipped more ingredients to fill it up, just waiting for the day to open the party. End of Chapter 1. The Kremensky encirclement was not just a local battle. It clearly reflected the change in the way Russia conducts war. No longer noisy, no longer hasty, but persistent and calculating. This puts the Ukrainian army in an extremely difficult position, as they have to face an increasingly tight encirclement, like a noose that the more you struggle, the tighter it is tightened. In Chapter 2, we will delve into the question, can the Kiev army find a way out, or will it have to accept a strategic defeat at Kremensky?
Chapter 2, Kremensky Pincers and the Strategic Trap. If in Chapter 1 we saw an overview of the Kremensky encirclement, then in Chapter 2 we will delve into how Russia set up a strategic trap and why the Ukrainian army was confused in finding a way out. 1. Terrain and strategic factors. On the defence map, the Kremensky area appears as a large piece of dense forest, interspersed with narrow plains and small river systems. In theory, this is a favourable terrain for guerrilla warfare and defence. However, when Russia tightened the encirclement from both the north and the south, Kremensky turned into a giant pan where the Ukrainian army was trapped in a narrow space, making it difficult to resupply and retreat. If you look at the map, the Russian northern attack cuts across the main supply route, while the southern attack approaches key population centres. The 2 points combined to form a pincer movement, like a giant pair of scissors gripping the opponent. 2. Why Russia chose Kremensky. Many analysts believe that Russia is not only aiming at a purely military target. Kremensky is not a large city, but it lies on a strategic corridor leading to Sloviansk and Kramatorsk, the 2 remaining hearts of Ukraine in the Donbass region. If Kremensky falls, the entire defence line in the northeast of Ukraine will be shaken. In addition, encircling instead of attacking en masse helps Russia save forces, reduce casualties, and force the opponent to suffocate due to lack of logistics. 3. The situation of the Ukrainian army. In the encirclement, Ukrainian soldiers face 2 options: either hold out till the end, or find a way to retreat through the roads of death, which are within the range of Russian artillery and drones. Some sources indicate that many Ukrainian units have been stuck, unable to withdraw due to lack of motorized vehicles. For example, if a Ukrainian military convoy tries to break the encirclement to the west, it will have to cross a nearly 10-kilometre stretch of open space, where every movement is monitored by drones. This is tantamount to turning itself into bait for Russian artillery. 4. Psychological and media impact. Kremensky is also a symbolic battlefield. If the encirclement is successful, Russia can claim an important psychological victory, while Ukraine will face domestic and international public pressure. Russian media will certainly exploit this event heavily, turning it into a miniature Stalingrad to boost morale. Chapter 3. Strategic Significance and Future Scenarios. 1. Why Kremensky is important for both sides. For Russia, controlling Kremensky means opening the door to Sloviansk and Kramatorsk, thereby completing the goal of controlling the entire Donbass region. This is also a testament to the classic encirclement tactic that Russia still considers its forte. For Ukraine, holding Kremensky is not only about protecting the territory, but also maintaining the trust of the West. A major failure here could directly affect the speed and scale of military aid. 2. Possible scenarios. Scenario 1. Russia tightens its grip and forces Ukraine to retreat. This is the scenario that many experts consider the most likely. Ukraine will have to sacrifice part of its forces to keep the main force safely retreating. Scenario 2. Ukraine counterattacks to relieve the siege. Not without precedent, but the possibility of success is low because Russia have deployed reserve forces around the encirclement. Scenario 3. Temporary compromise. In the context of a protracted war, sometimes both sides need a break. However, this possibility is low because Kremensky has too great a strategic significance. 3. Broader military significance. Kremensky could become a template for subsequent battles. If Russia succeeds, they will continue to apply the encirclement tactic to other fronts. On the contrary, if Ukraine can withstand, this will be a testament to its ability to adapt and fight persistently. Imagine, on the defense map, each successful encirclement is like adding a cut to the enemy's defense system. If these cuts continue, the wall will gradually collapse. 4. International impact. The reaction from the outside cannot be ignored. The US and Europe are certainly watching closely. A Russian victory will give the anti-aid Ukraine side more ammunition. On the contrary, if Ukraine holds out, it will be a vote of encouragement for continued aid. Conclusion: when the battlefield becomes a political chessboard. The Battle of Kremensky is not only a local battle, but also a symbol of the entire Russia-Ukraine war. It reflects the struggle on both the battlefield and on the political, diplomatic, and psychological chessboard. The Kremensky encirclement is like a test for both sides. The side that fails will lose more than a piece of land. They may lose confidence, lose support, and lose the initiative. If you find this analysis interesting and useful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to History and War channel to continue updating in-depth, sharp, and unique analyses of wars around the world. Because history never stops people again, and war always leaves bloody lessons for humanity.